Hi, I'm Doug Kenrick, and I'm here with my son, Dave. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
How's it going? I'm Dave Lundberg Kenrick. I am the Media Outreach Program Manager for the ASU Department of Psychology, and my dad and I have co-written a book, which we will be telling you about today. And we are also joined by two, well, actually, Dad, do you want to tell us what the idea of the talk is?
So the idea of the talk is the psychological effects of electronic devices on teens, and focusing on how modern technology parasitizes our evolved motivational systems. And so to help us talk about this, we have two representative teens with us today. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Greta.
I'm Sophia.
Hi, Greta and Sophia. Thanks for joining us.
Greta is my daughter, and Sophia is one of her best friends. So.
Okay.
And all right. So as we go through, Greta and Sophia, if you guys have questions, just say, "I have a question." Okay.
Okay.
Or comments, whatever. Yeah, and just feel free.
Do you guys have any questions yet?
I don't think so.
No.
All right. Cool.
All right. Good. So just overview. Human beings have a set of evolved fundamental motives that unfold over the course of development. And those normally adaptive systems that we have are parasitized by modern technology. And as Dave pointed out, we're going to be talking about some ideas in this book that we just wrote, which is actually going to appear any day now, available as a Kindle version in just a few days, and that's going to be available in print in about a month. And as Dave pointed out, he works on something called Psych for Life, in which, why don't you say what you do with Psych for Life?
Well, the idea of Psych for Life is it's a program that ASU is developing, the psych department is developing, about how people can use psychology in day-to-day life to improve their lives and their relationships and things like that. So,
go ahead. And we wrote this book because we've spent a lot of time talking about the question of, well, research in psychology, it may involve jobs for both of us, but also we presume, and Dave's program presumes, that psychological research can actually provide some information that could help with questions like the question he and I talk about a lot when we're biking or walking around is, how can we use this research to help, his younger brother, who's the kid in the picture with long hair, and my two grandchildren. This is Greta at a slightly younger age here with her brother, Finn. How can we use psychological research to help them live a more fulfilling life, or at least, not to be kind of wrecked in this modern world, and all three of these kids and Sophia, very bright, healthy kids. But I sometimes think that they're going to have problems in the modern world, and some of them are due to the technology that was invented originally to help them in some ways. The book begins by talking about how we renovated Maslow's classic pyramid of needs, which you may have heard about.
Have you guys ever heard of Maslow? Do you know who Maslow is?
No.
Who's Maslow?
Okay.
Who's Maslow?
So Maslow had this idea that human beings have to solve certain kinds of problems as they develop, and that as you move on and solve the problems lower in the hierarchy, you can move on to other kinds of things. And we've just revised this in line with sort of modern, biology and anthropology and psychology to elaborate it and to just basically say that, look, we also have to solve, Maslow had self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. And what we say is, well, self-actualization is something that's actually involved with, gaining status and affiliation to a large extent. In any event, in the book, we use this renovated pyramid to talk about how our our modern lives pose certain kinds of special problems. So we have evolved these motivational systems that helped our ancestors in the past, but in the modern world, there's sort of two problems. Some of the problems that we confront are new. They weren't what our ancestors had to confront. They didn't live in giant cities with hundreds of thousands of strangers that they met on trains, planes, and automobiles while they were all on their iPhones. And a second problem is that these technologies which we design to help us can actually be used to exploit these fundamental motives in ways that we'll explain as we go through here.
So what is this pyramid right here?
So what this pyramid is basically, this represents the problems that humans need to solve as they develop. When you're a baby, you just need to get nursed and you need to be kept dry and warm, okay? Then you get a little bit older, you need to to avoid dangerous strangers. A little bit older, you go to preschool, you need to make friends. A little bit older, you want to get respect. And then later, beginning in the teenage years, people begin to become concerned with mate acquisition. Later, they become concerned with retaining the mates that they found. And then finally, developmentally at least, then parenting takes over, in which we try to help somebody else work their way through this exact same pyramid.
So Greta has a crush on this boy, Rohan.
Uh-oh. This is going to be public, I'm afraid.
Rohan does not exist. Rohan is fake. I promise you.
Okay.
I thought he was on the tennis team and he has a tiny head and he plays a musical instrument, right? Is this all made up? So,
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Oh.
It better be, or we're going to be sued. Right, so
it is.
what we're going to do is we're going to go through these. We're going to go through each one of these steps, and we're going to talk about how, what the problem is, and how technology kind of adds additional layers of problems for us. So we're going to start off with, again, the concept here is that wherever someone has a powerful desire, or any animal has a powerful desire or accumulates resources, that opens up the window for parasitism. And again, modern technology just is used to parasitize these motives. And we're going to talk through each of these steps. We're going to start with immediate physiological needs. So we inherited from our ancestors brain mechanisms that were designed to give our ancestors a burst of pleasure when they did something that helped them survive. Okay, so when you're a baby, nursing just feels good, turns on your brain's pleasure center. When you're an adult and you get thirsty, you drink water, you feel pleasure. When you eat calorie-dense foods, which would have prevented our ancestors from starving, you feel pleasure. And that's all, those are good systems. In the modern world, though, it opens up opportunities for the food and beverage industry to sort of exploit these things. Now, not to say anything bad about Ben and Jerry, who I really love, and I love their products, they make something that's very delicious, but it turns out that too much of it is not so good for you. So in the book, for example, we talk about problems like this. Elvis Presley, who was very fit when he was 19 or 20 years old, spent a lot of time dancing across the stage, very fit, but then as he got older, he actually started gaining more and more weight, got up to 350 pounds, and he died young of heart problems. Walter Hudson, similar period of history to Elvis, but he got up to 1,197 pounds and he couldn't even fit out of the bedroom where he lived. And I think he stayed in there for, a decade or two, didn't even leave the room. And he also, like Elvis, died of heart disease. When we were researching this book, I was very surprised to find that a lot of hunter-gatherers do live long lives. They live to their 70s and 80s, and they don't get heart attacks. Well, why? Because they exercise all the time and they don't have access to Ben and Jerry's. They eat berries and they eat high protein foods. And so this is a new problem for us in the modern world. Turns out that 21% of teenagers in 2018 were obese. Compared to the 1970s, this is 7 times higher.
The moral that we're going to say is we're going to have you guys start hunting. Okay, so because you guys are in good shape now, we want it to stay that way. So
you're gonna have to
you
chase
guys
rabbits.
and Wes are.
We'll have to go out with the puppy and chase rabbits and dig up, dig berries or find berries. So
here's a good question. What kind of food do they actually serve in school lunches at your schools?
They just kind of give us, like, we have different sandwiches.
There's like fried chicken
hamburgers.
sandwiches. Does
Yeah.
your school do that?
They
I've
sometimes
never
have,
eaten them, but I don't really know.
sometimes they'll have like a bean and cheese burrito,
They
salads.
my school sells French fries
Yeah.
and like hot Cheetos and like cookies
Oh.
and stuff for sale.
In the vending machines and stuff, it's just kind of a bunch of,
Like
it's like health, like they'll get like the baked
they'll get like
chips,
they'll get like the low fat sort of things, but they're
it's
still not
good for you.
it's not much
Now,
different.
what do I send you with? Do I send you with healthy foods? What do I send you with?
Personally, I think for school a lot of the time I'll eat like if you make my lunch, I'll have like apple slices or like an apple and like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which I think is healthier than
It's healthy-ish, right? But it's still, why do you think I picked those?
It's easy.
it's easy.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
easy. And like,
it's like
how
something
long do I
fun.
spend preparing meals in the morning?
Like 2 minutes because we're
Yeah,
only-
exactly. Right. What does that look like in our lives? Is it like I wake up and I have lots of time, or
No, it's like we're all wake up with like 10
We're
minutes
running out
to
the door.
leave. So you'll make Finn and I's lunches because Finn and I are also running late, so we have to like get dressed and ready.
right. So you don't necessarily have time for the ultimate health. Actually, what I do I get up early every morning and I chop up little pieces of fruit for Liam. But it takes me a long time. And most people in the modern world, they often use prepared foods. They'll give their kids something that's actually already pre-made and it's very unhealthy. It's not as good as a peanut butter sandwich.
do I ever tell you guys to have a granola bar for breakfast? Yeah, pretty much.
Granola bars they're not terrible, but they are full of sugar. And
It's just
Yeah.
one of the other things, besides the fact that we eat a lot of junk food in the modern world, I asked my students at ASU to talk about the ways in which their electronic devices both helped and hurt them. And one of the things that they commonly mentioned is that devices often get in the way of actual exercise. So instead of actually going out and walking around in the world like our ancestors used to do, what are those games called, Dave, where people walk around?
Greta, what's a game you guys play?
With
what's a
walking
game?
around. What's one where you walk around in an imaginary world?
Pokemon Go. That's one that got really
Well,
popular.
Pokemon Go gets you out of the house, right?
Well, Pokemon Go, you walk around. But no, a lot of the games
guys
that I
are-
see.
You guys
Liam-
are obsessed with like Roblox, right?
Roblox.
Oh, I thought you meant ones that take you outside.
Yeah.
Any
Roblox-
game,
Roblox,
Minecraft.
Yeah, so in these games, you're moving around, but you're actually not moving around. Your mind is moving around, but your body's sitting
Yeah.
there within easy reach of the Cheetos and the brownies.
What is it? What do you guys have? Dots and Twizzlers? Not to call the point of this video was not to call you guys out. Airheads.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. Okay, good. No, thank you.
Because we ate it, but then you get
So
All right, so here we go. Here's solutions because so a lot of it this is going to be for parents, right? And so
Yeah.
All right, so much
well,
easier.
kids too can do the same thing. So there's this principle called stimulus control from behavioral psychology, which basically the punchline of it for applying it to your life is that it's really hard to resist temptation. When you put really tasty things in front of yourself, if there's a freezer full of Ben and Jerry's, right? And if there are Twizzlers sitting right by, for example, it's really hard to resist temptation. it's a lot easier to control your environment, to basically set it up so that you only bring into the house fruits and vegetables and healthy foods. Even though when you're looking at those fruits and vegetables, you might think, boy, I wish I had Ben and Jerry's. But most people don't have the energy to go to the store and get the Ben and Jerry's. Then they'll go ahead and they'll eat the fruit. They'll satisfy that need in a healthy way. And parents can do that by filling their kids' lunch boxes with healthy snacks, and by making those healthy snacks more available and accessible around the house. And hiding the Twizzlers, Dave.
Oh, well, actually, I think in our house we do the opposite, right? You guys often have to hide the snacks from me, right?
Yeah.
Like I will like.
Right. It isn't like, so we're talking about teens, but it's not like adults have in my house, especially during the COVID period when there was a threat that everything was going to be, scarce. I filled up, I went to Sprouts, I got all these like chocolate covered cherries, chocolate covered raisins, chocolate covered almonds. I thought these are kind of healthy, but I put them in big jars on the shelf. And every time I walk through the kitchen, I grab a handful of chocolate covered somethings and stuff them in my mouth. So
yeah. What happens to ice cream and Oreo cookies in our house?
A lot of the time
So much.
they'll go, like, our Oreo cookies are in a separate cabinet. The dad doesn't know they're in there until
you have to hide them from them. Okay, good.
we'll be like, we have cookies. Like,
So you guys are helping dad. That's
And then
good.
what happens when I discover where they are?
they go by pretty fast.
Pretty much, right?
You guys vacuumed up. Okay.
We'll have these things where like you'll come upstairs and you'll be like, where are the cookies? And I'll be like, Finn and I ate them. And then like Finn will be like, I had 2. And then I'll be like, all right, well, yeah. And then I had the entire pack -2. So
I guess the lesson here is that teenagers need to, keep these foods away from their parents. You need to find better hiding places for
Everyone
the
needs to get healthier.
and put fruits in front of Dave.
Or, well, the other option is what we could be doing is we could take the cookies, right, when we get home from the store. I think we should try this. And we put them in separate little packages. And then we hide them all around the house. And then I have to scavenge. Like, I do what?
Oh, like what you do with the dog.
Yeah. And then I have to find them, right? And we each get like a third of like the things to hide from everyone else. So I'll know where a third are. And you'll know where a third are. And Finn will know where a third are. And then if I want cookies, I can't just go to that thing. Like I have to just like,
Yeah.
can we try that?
Okay.
Maybe.
I would recommend you bring fewer cookies into the house, Dave, as your dad. Just bring fruits and vegetables home. Come on.
All right, so maybe we'll do both. We'll get more fruits and vegetables. All right, so that's our solution.
The next level.
We'll try both.
Okay.
All right.
And so as children, once we've satisfied our
Is
needs.
Greta running to the bathroom?
Okay.
Or is she hiding snacks?
She's just turning the fan on.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, we're good.
So look, when you're developing, okay, first thing when you're a baby, you need to get milk, okay? Then you get a little older, you need to protect yourself from strangers. And, our ancestors were often attacked by people coming over the hill, gangs often of young males who were marauding them. So our minds are designed to be attentive to dangers from strangers. This actually gets exploited by the news industry. They deliver us threats every hour on the hour. They tell us, here, people they're coming across the borders, or there's guns all over the place, or, so there's this continual threat from the media. And then there's these big data robots that mine your clicks to figure out what it is that you're most afraid of, and it gives it to you, and it's not really the fault of the media, because we eat it up in the same way we eat up Ben and Jerry's. We eat up bad news. There was one study that looked at 20 years of news headlines and looked at what were the most popular categories of news, and 5 out of 6 of the most popular top categories were bad news, war and terrorism, bad weather, human-created disasters, natural disasters, crime, and social violence. Do you guys get this? Do you, on your social media or anything, do you get any, are you ever delivered bad news, or is that not a problem for?
A little bit, but not like super often. But sometimes if there's like a big war going on, or like a lot of
one specific
or like
disaster.
a crazy natural disaster or something, it'll come up for a couple days, but then it kind of goes away until the next big thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Well, when you're an adult, it gets terrible. It's a continual onslaught. It's a flood. If you guys can you move just a slight inch closer, because it's better when I could see you better before. Yeah. You can go ahead and sit back when you want to, but it's like it's easier to see you. You were a little bit in the dark a minute ago. Okay. So what are the solutions to that? Well, one of the things that Dave and I do is that we delete these apps that regularly frighten us. You know, in my case, I had to delete the New York Times and the Washington Post apps from my phone because they were continuously reminding me, oh, you know, in case you didn't know, there's another, that threat that we told you about at 10 o'clock. Here it is at 11 o'clock. It's gotten worse.
The boys are literally playing violent video games right now. By the way, I can see on Discord. That's why they're not here. Yeah.
Yes, well, they're the ones who really need this. Okay, so at any rate, so then as you get a little bit older, you go to preschool, you start to becoming concerned with making friends. When did you and Sophia meet each other? Was it in preschool or was it later on?
In sixth grade. At the beginning of middle school.
You guys are sort of recent friends. Okay. But starting off in preschool, kids do get interested in playing with other kids and making friends. And in fact, our ancestors did a very good job of cooperating with one another. There's some anthropologists at ASU, Kim Hill and Magdalena Hurtado, who with their colleagues have analyzed all of the calories that are brought in amongst members of the Ache tribe down in South America. And what they find is that if people didn't share food with their neighbors, they would starve, except sometimes one family does well today, and they bring in like a large game and they share it with their neighbors. And then another day they don't do so well, but their neighbors reciprocate. And besides sharing food, people in traditional societies help each other find food. They help each other, learn how to fish and hunt, how to prepare food so it's maximally, gives you maximal nutrition and so forth. So, so we're designed to want to be around other people. There's Julianne Holt-Lundstad, who I think is at BYU. She did an analysis of all of the different findings on the health implications of being lonely, of not having social connections, not having Sophia when you're Greta or vice versa. And it turns out that the mortality risk from feeling lonely is as bad as being obese or smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to Dr. Holt-Lundstad.
So as long as you guys have friends, you can smoke. See, that's the moral of that, right?
Yeah, you can eat the Cheetos, right? Yeah. Good advice. You're a great dad. I did a good job raising you. Yeah. So look, we want to be around other people, and we have these apps, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Yeah. And so these can allow you to connect with other people, right? In fact, so here's an interesting recent statistic. The Journal of the American Medical Association, their pediatrics journal, looked at the amount of time that kids spend on screens. And before COVID, kids were spending almost 4 hours a day in screen time. And then once COVID hit, that went up to almost 8 hours. And Liam said, oh, he thinks that's just because they were on screen at school. But no, here's what it was. Here's what the 8 hours were made up of. It was the biggest time was streaming videos, okay? but then it was multiplayer games. And in fact, if you look at a lot of what kids are doing, it is actually social. Multiplayer games, social media, texting, video chats. Those are things that connect you with other kids. So they should satisfy that need, right? Well, do they? Here's Jean Twenge has done a lot of research on this topic. And what she reports is that kids who spend more time on social media than average are actually unhappier than average. On the other hand, kids who are doing what you and Sophia are doing now, Greta, hanging out face to face with one another, are actually happier than average. So
see, no Instagram.
Right, no Instagram, but you can okay. Well, here's some other interesting stats. So by the time kids between 8 and 11 years old, 50% of them already have a smartphone. What happens when they get up to 12 to 15 years old, like you two? Well, boom, 90% of them have a cell phone.
I don't think I know. I know one person.
You don't have a cell phone? Liam doesn't have a cell phone either.
But you guys both have cell phones, right?
We do.
All of my friends do, and there's only one person, and she happens to be like my closest friend at high school. And she's like not shamed for it, but like, whoa, it's like weird.
Yeah, that's funny. That is funny.
Oh, like what? Like how do people respond to hearing that she doesn't have a cell phone?
There's this one kid in track with her that's like, do you just like sit? And they like don't get it almost. And it's like, what do you do?
That's interesting. So social media, kids between 8 and 11 years old, about over 40% of them are already on social media. Then when they get to 12 to 15, almost 90% are on social media. Do you two have any social media platforms you use, like Facebook or anything?
Yeah, I use TikTok and Snapchat.
I have a lot. I have TikTok, I have Snapchat, I have Instagram, I use Pinterest,
I use Pinterest.
Okay.
I
Wow.
use YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube.
I use a
I
lot.
didn't think of them.
I use a lot of things.
Okay. So, and then the other thing is playing games online, which is what Liam and Finn are doing now, which is why they couldn't join us. And it turns out that even as early as 8 to 11 years old, close to 80% of kids are playing games online, which has some consequences that we'll talk about in a minute. But I'll tell you one other thing. So how do you feel if you were without your cell phone? Well, let me ask the two of you. If you didn't have your cell phone, if you put it aside and left it in a drawer, would it make you feel happy, or would it make you feel lonely or anxious, or what would you say?
I don't know.
I think if I was like doing things, like actively like doing like face-to-face things, I don't think I would feel as like lonely or anything, because I'd be like busy. But if I had nothing to do, I might be kind of
I'd be
bored, or maybe more anxious, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would depend on the situation of what was going on.
If
like,
I'm
that
busy,
day.
like sometimes if I go somewhere, like my phone will die or I forget my device at home or whatever. And it's not that big of a deal as long as I'm not just doing nothing. If I have something to do, it's not that bad. It's not bad really at all because I'm focused almost. But if I'm just like sitting in my room all day with nothing to do, I would be like, really,
I think
I'd be wanting my phone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so here was a survey that looked at kids. This was back in 2018, but I think I am often happy if I don't have my cell phone. I'm fine without it. And about, maybe 17% of teenage boys said they'd feel happy if they didn't have their cell phone. But 20% of them said they'd feel lonely, and 35% of them said they would actually feel anxious, nervous without their cell phone. And girls, do you think girls were different than boys?
How would you guys feel?
I just asked them that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
What what do you think, girls in general? Are they going to be more lonely and anxious than boys without their cell phones, or the same, or less, or what?
I think
don't
really
know.
anxious because
I feel like, well, it would depend. If I was like personally, if I was like out and about doing things, if I was with my like parents or family, I wouldn't be anxious without it. But like if me and Sophia went out like to the mall or somewhere, I think I'd be anxious without it, because like I
just in
wouldn't have,
case.
like, in case something happened, or I wouldn't have a way to like contact anyone.
Well, I'm just
Well, I
thinking
feel-
about my friends. Like, I don't use my phone that often, I don't think, unless I'm at home. But I have this one friend who's like literally never not on their phone. And I feel like if they didn't have their phone, they'd be really like, what are people saying about me? What's happening on this? What's doing that? I feel like they'd be really
Ah.
anxious.
So here's what the girls did. Girls were more likely than boys to feel lonely, and almost 50% of teenage girls said that they would feel anxious if they didn't have their cell phone. And so here's one more statistic. This is also from Jean Twenge, who I mentioned before. This is the blue line, shows you loneliness, okay? Do you often feel lonely? And that the numbers of kids who were saying they often felt lonely was going down between about 1990 and 2007. But then the iPhone was introduced, and Dr. Twenge thinks that this is an important causal factor in the fact that loneliness went up over the next number of years. So the cell phones didn't seem to at least solve the loneliness problem. This is also feeling left out. They often feel left out. Kids were feeling less left out between 1990 and 2005. And then Zoom, it backs up again after iPhones were sent in. So whatever we can say about this, we can say that at least iPhones haven't solved the problem of loneliness and may actually make it worse. What are some solutions? Well, one of the things, the suggestion that we made to you.
Actually, wait, I have a question. Before we tell them our solutions, what do you guys think would be good?
Just be actually outside.
What do you mean? Like go outside, or like
I don't know. Or even like if you're at school or something, don't just sit by yourself on your phone.
I agree.
Because
Like
a lot of people, if they don't have friends, they just stay that way. They just keep doing
I know
they just keep going on their phone because they're like, well, I don't have any friends, so why would I go try and make friends? And I could just sit here and entertain myself. Or they could just go out and see someone else who's sitting alone, or see someone who seems like they would let them sit with them. And just like in the first week of school, me and my friends just invited someone over because they were sitting alone. And like now we're like really good friends.
Ah,
I like that. So,
yeah, cool. So anyway, the advice we have in the book is to first hang out with real people, like we said before. Hanging out with one another is a lot better than just interacting over a cell phone. It seems to be psychologically better for your mental health. And then you were talking about the question of, well, making new friends. And one of the things, there's a lot of social psychological research suggests that if you find people who have similar interests to you, and when you meet people and you find some way in which they're similar to you, people like other people who are similar to them. It's sort of like Ben and Jerry's for our affiliation module of our brain. You know, we like people who agree with us and people who are similar to us in their interests. And so finding people who are similar to you and finding similarities in the people who are around you is one good way to make friends.
Mm-hmm.
So the next level up, so you've gotten yourself fed, you've protected yourself from the bad guys, you've made some friends. Now, when kids get a little bit older, they start to becoming concerned with getting some respect, okay? And, this made sense, for our ancestors, because getting respect meant that the members of your group valued you and looked up to you. And it was, there were benefits that came with that. They would, like if you were, we talked about, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to ask them, what do they think of, what do you imagine it means to have a lot of status? Like when you picture somebody who.
It's because like
in high school or just like in life?
I just think
Both.
that's what we're doing. That's
So what about in high school?
And
So,
people who
Who are like well known.
like people,
Like, because I know there are people who like, if you like,
you'll say a
say
name and like, oh, I know
something
them,
about
and you've never seen them before, And
yeah,
people
like
are
even if you haven't had like a conversation with them,
you just
you
know
know
of
who they
them.
are.
Hmm.
And that's probably like the highest status in high school,
Ah,
like
you
being
think
one
it's
of the
different
I
from-
don't
popular.
think like, it's not like there's like a ranking or anything.
No,
but
it's just like just being like that kid. Like I know this guy where literally you could say his name and people are like, oh, I know that guy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
So having a lot of connections enhances your
Yeah.
status. Yeah. Um, well, computer games are one way to basically make people feel like they're getting ahead in life. You get like what Liam and Finn are doing right now is they're playing these games, they're probably racking up points, okay? And it's very easy to rack up points in these games while you're actually sucking away time from real accomplishments in your real life. This graph is it's kind of a complicated graph, but what it's showing you is basically the different days of the week. And these are times when people could be studying, and down below are times when they're in classes. And this is just basically showing you the darker the spot is just telling you that at those times, people are more likely to be using social media apps while they should be studying or while they are actually in class. And in fact, at ASU, I often have to tell students, please stop checking. They have their cell phones out and they don't put them up here like this, but they've got them under the desk and you can kind of see them looking down, you know, and typing away on their cell phones when they should be in class. You know, this turns out to be very common. Instead of studying, instead of paying attention in class, people are checking their cell phones. You know, Finn just mentioned that in one of the classes he was taking in engineering, I asked him, what'd you learn in there? He said, we didn't learn much because we spent a lot of time. The teacher gave us free time and we spent our time on our cell phones in the class. And so, well, if you're on your cell phone, you could be using it to check Wikipedia or to find out some, you know, download information. It could be good, but is it good? My college students at ASU, when I asked them, they thought one of the two most harmful things that they got out of their devices was that they, when it came to status, they would waste time that they could have used to get ahead. But maybe they were getting something good. So what is the actual data? Well, here's a study that looked at the correlation with grades. So looking at the amount of time you spend on your cell phone, okay, like that one friend of yours, Sophia, who spends all of her time on her cell phone, and it's negatively correlated with grades. So the more time you spend on your phone, the worse your grades. On the other hand, some people actually put their cell phones away and they, you know, they have inactive periods. And the more time that you spend with your phone off to the side, not being used at all, the higher your grades. Okay, so it looks like my students at ASU are right to be concerned about the fact that their electronic devices are wasting time that they could use to actually be doing better in life. In terms of solutions, well, what do the two of you think about could be some solutions for this problem of letting your devices suck up the time you could use to do well in life?
Probably having like a more, at least in school, because that's just what we do.
Right.
Teachers could have a more like strict policy, because right now, at least in my school, teachers don't really do anything. They're just like put it away, but they don't.
Yeah, they like
they don't-
tell the students to put it away, but
They don't like make sure
A
they put
lot
it in
of
their
the time,
backpack or.
there's some students that don't. And like sometimes my teachers will like threaten to take them away, but then they never do.
I've never seen a teacher like actually take it away or like make sure they put it away
I
or
have. But the student, like they don't learn from
there's
like
no real consequence.
one of my
Yeah.
teachers, if people are on their phone, she'll like say she's gonna take it away. And then there are a few times she will, but, like not all the time sort of thing. So like then the students just like they don't seem to care.
Also, in a lot of my classes, a lot of teachers just generally don't care. Like I know in my class, sometimes I'll just watch a show and the
Oh.
teacher can like very
Yeah.
visibly see. And they just go, do you plan on turning in your assignments? And I'm like, yes. And then they're like, okay. And then we just keep going and I just keep watching.
Wow.
My
Yeah, I
teacher
heard that. Yeah, when I talked to these pediatricians the other day about the same topic, they were saying how, you know, the kids in schools are using these devices they're not even really at school. anymore. And they were also saying that in their waiting rooms, when parents bring the kids into the waiting room, they also bring the kid with a device. And so the devices are going everywhere. What about you yourself? Is there anything that you can do yourself to address this problem?
I'm doing something little, just leave my phone at home. If I'm just going out, like not anywhere I need it, not like going out, but like if I'm going, like if I go anywhere, my phone's with me. If I go on a walk, I take my phone with me. If I'm chasing down the ice cream guy, I'm taking my phone with me. Like I always have my phone on me
because I don't want to get kidnapped by the ice cream guy. I'm kidding.
Or like maybe I could just put it down at sometimes, or at school, make sure it's put away. Just not have it on my body at all times.
So
Yeah,
go ahead, Greta.
I feel like I'm
have it with you, just like not on you.
I'm like less likely, like if my phone is in my backpack,
it's a lot more.
I won't be like checking it or anything. But if it's like in my pocket
or on the desk,
I'm more aware, like if it like buzzes or something.
When it's not in sight,
so
it's
then
not in
I'm
your
more
mind.
like, oh my gosh, like what was that sort of thing. But if it's in my backpack, I'm less.
So isolating yourself. So one of the other things that I started to look up the other day, there's all this time management software. And in fact, I didn't even know this, but the iPhone itself has its own time. You can actually set limits so that you can't spend more than X number of hours a day on a particular app. And it's not really well advertised. And in fact, I didn't even know about it until one of my graduate students told me the other day that it's right there. And there are other kinds of apps that you can use. So in some sense, you can use them in the same way that we use inoculations. We use kind of a virus, a weakened virus to protect us from a dangerous virus. We can use these devices to help us. We could put apps on there that make it so that we control our other apps.
So there's also in research on sort of like behavior modification and like habit building, just simply making the unwanted habit harder is a good thing, and making sort of other options easier. Those are the two things they recommend. So like one simple thing is when you're at school, you might want to like just power the phone down, because then you have to go through the step of powering the phone back on, and it gives you an extra chance to be like, no, I'm going to do this other thing instead. And then also maybe even if there's things that you're like, oh, I really want to get this done, right? I want to read The Count of Monte Cristo so much. You can like just have it next to your phone, so when you go to reach for that. So the one other thing I would, go ahead, Sophia.
I was just saying, like, you're giving them fair opportunities rather than like only having your phone.
Yeah, because your phone will buzz and things like that. My phone just literally buzzed 2 seconds ago. And I looked at it despite being in the middle of this.
Yeah, here we are talking about this, and I saw that you were looking down at your phone just like the students in my class.
Yeah, so they buzz. They're designed to get our attention. The other thing you guys could do is you could have accountability partners. So you could say to somebody in your class, I'm not going to use my phone until I would you not do that, Greta? You're shaking your head.
Well, you could have a contest with one another. Say, let's see which of us can spend more time away from our phone today.
Snap all day during school.
And then if you
what?
You
using Snap throughout school, Greta? Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
You guys should each pick an accountability partner and say, I'm not going to use my phone.
My friends try.
So this
You try?
They go, Sophia, your assignment's right there. And they go, I'll get it done.
So so you should try turning the phone off and then be like, and you can make it a reward. Like you could say like, all right, I got to work for 10 minutes and then I can turn it on and check it. But you got to turn it off and then you got to do the 10 minutes. So,
right. And then make it 15 minutes, then make it 20 minutes. Lengthen the time you're without the addictive substance.
You could even tell each other, right, over Snap. You'd be like, all right, I actually did this for a while with like people at ASU, where it was like, during COVID time, it was like, all right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work. I'll talk to you guys in 15 minutes. And we would do that. And then we would take like a 5-minute break to chat over Zoom. And then we'd go back to work.
In like 8th grade, when we would have
We would hang up. We
Zoom
would
calls together.
we would be on the
would
phone
be
all
on
day.
the phone like all day
And then-
because
We had no one to talk to.
we didn't have anyone to talk to. Yeah. So we would be like, okay, I'll call you back.
We're gonna go do an assignment, and
But
then
I feel like we weren't always effective.
because when we call back, we'd be like, "Did you do it?" And they'd be like, "No." Okay, let's play Minecraft.
Well, so one of the things they also, like the habit research shows, is that you want to pick fairly small tasks. So rather than saying, I'm going to turn this off and go do my whole assignment, and then when you turn it off, you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. You say, you know what, I'm going to do the first 4 problems, and I'll text you as soon as the first 4 problems are done, or even the first problem, right? This is a thing that Greta, I think when we do math homework, I'm always like, come on, let's just take the book out and look at it. And you guys could do that. You could say, I'm going to take the book out. I'm going to send you a snap of my open math book. And then you just do that step, because then you have it out and then you look at it. And often when you look at it, right, when you're like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. So those are some options that, yeah, I could tell Greta, you're like, never.
We're going to move away from that one to mate acquisition. Okay, so
Rohan.
again, after people have gotten made their friends, gotten some respect, teenagers start to get concerned with Rohan. Is that the name? And with acquiring a mate.
Wait. I want to hear what are you saying, Greta? I couldn't hear. What? Did you guys? I feel like we lost your microphone.
I think you covered the speaker when you moved it before.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Hear you now, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So what's up with?
Rohan is not a real person.
I know.
We
made Rohan up to.
Okay.
Okay.
So for older people, there are these hookup apps like Tinder, which are kind of like Ben and Jerry's for the mating module. I guess, have you two ever heard of this thing called Yubo?
Yes.
I've seen
They have
Seriously?
advertising recently.
And do kids, what I understand is that kids, in addition to finding friends, they also use it as a teenage dating website. You don't know about that?
Is that not the case?
I'm not
You
sure.
guys
I've never
more-
seen it.
All the ads that I've ever
I've
seen,
seen ads.
and if I've ever heard anybody talk about it, it's more so
I mean,
making
it's kind of
friends.
believable
Okay.
that they would use it for that though.
But there's a lot
I've
of
never
other
like
apps.
seen it for like, I've never, wait, what am
There
I
are
saying?
other apps that are used by teenagers for dating.
Yes, this one's more so. I
Like
use.
what's an app that's used for dating?
I don't use one, but everyone
Oh, but-
uses like a Tinder or like
Oh,
a
Tinder.
Bumble.
Okay, all right.
Don't you have to be 18? Do they just fake their age? Do they just set up fake profiles?
I
or-
thought you had to be
Yeah.
18.
Yeah,
they
they just
people
set up-
are-
They ask for your age, then you can just select like 27.
Okay.
Oh my
I don't know.
gosh.
I would never.
Sophia would know. Sophia would know.
Oh,
Right.
so okay.
I would not be shocked.
But
if
there
you
are
got-
kids at your school who have fake Tinder profiles.
I don't know. I've never asked.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe somebody at lunch was like, "Help me set up my Tinder profile." So
Okay, so-
I don't think anybody in high school is trying to date online.
I
It is
think-
actually, so let me give you some interesting stats. Speaking of kids dating in high school, back in 1976, if you asked 12th graders, people of Liam's age, 15% of them had never dated. In 2018, a couple of years ago, almost 50%. So almost half of college seniors have never dated. So it's actually probably accurate.
high school seniors, not college seniors.
Yeah, oh, so high school
Yeah,
seniors.
so you're right. So you guys are probably right. Most kids in your
Most
school
kids
are not.
dating.
They're not on Tinder.
Right,
So
they're not.
Can I say one thing?
sure.
I feel like teenagers who date people online, they use like
It's not for dating.
Snapchat or like
Oh.
Instagram or something where
People-
they'll just like start like chatting. It's not like they're like swiping
What people do is they'll
left or
like
right like Tinder sort
I mean,
of.
that's probably because
they'll
yeah, I
add.
feel-
They just kind of find like they don't
'Cause-
really make dating apps for teenagers. I mean, they probably do, but like
Snapchat.
I don't think they do. I don't think that's like totally legal.
Yeah, they're not
So-
supposed to.
people.
the
So
way Snapchat works is
Oh.
they like They recommend
will just-
friends of your friends or friends of people
So,
that go
like-
to your school or in your contacts. And so people will just add people that they don't even really know, but they know that they're friends of friends. And so they'll just add them and start talking, and they'll be like, hey, you know.
Yeah, like I feel like
I mean-
that's more people like date
Now it-
online.
Right.
it-
They
Well,
don't
that's
know-
good. I mean, that seems way less sketchy than setting up a dating
Exactly.
profile where they're saying they're 27 on Tinder. Like, that's like
Although,
not a
you know
good
what
idea.
happens.
So,
Well,
okay.
Speaking of even worse things than that, there are also websites where
Oh my
people
gosh.
can go. So, and we don't necessarily want to talk about this to Sophia and Rana, but it's like teenage. So here's an interesting statistic. 68% of adolescents, probably mostly boys, but I'm not sure, have been exposed to online pornography. And about 10% of them were identified as potentially at risk because they were wasting so much time looking at
Gosh.
pornography. And here's another problem with mating and apps of kids who are, of the 50% of kids who do date by the time they get to senior year, a quarter of those kids have problems because these websites, people use things like the social media to harass one another and so to abuse their dating partners. And I've seen that in some adults where their, girlfriends continuously are, where were you? Why didn't you respond to me? I sent you a text, 7 minutes ago. Are you dead? Okay. And right during the workday, for example. So there's a lot of abuse with these things. In terms of some of the solutions here, again, when you guys get older and interested in real, not imaginary partners, one of the things that we would recommend is to actually select your mates from people that you actually know, the people that your family and your friends know, so that you're not, because a lot of these things, if people go on and make a fake, identity on Tinder, the other person on the other side might be a fake as well. And there are these instances of people getting exploited by that. So it can get to be kind of dangerous. But so basically dating people is a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
And even if you see somebody on Snap and you're like, they seem cool, check with your friends first. Like, do you know this person? Are they legit?
Then make sure they're a real person and that they're really who they claim to be. And then after that,
The one other thing, because
go ahead.
Dad had mentioned like sites where people see like pornography. If there's ever anything where you're like, what the heck is this? Talk to your parents about it. And so there you go. That's it.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
No, I think that is, no, that's one of the things they do talk about, right? In terms of, it's like, it's always good for people to feel comfortable. So,
right.
So, yeah. So anyway, don't talk to me about it now, but like, if there's ever questions, that is so.
At any rate, so once people find mates, the next problem is retaining those mates. And, just in terms of evolution, 95% of other mammals, that they have no bond between the mother and the father. But
I have a quick question. Do you guys know anybody, like, are any of your friends dating people at this point? Yeah.
Yes, or have dated.
Yeah,
or
they have
dating.
dated. I don't know.
I know
If they're in a relationship now. So,
Yeah.
okay. Have you had friends talk to you about fights they're having with their significant others? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Are there like things that cause problems that you'd be able to talk about?
Wait, what'd you say?
Like,
I didn't hear you.
Are there like specific like themes that come up that are like common problems that?
Well, one of the person
Like don't specifically call out any friends, but like if there's
had a boyfriend, and a situation happened where they're hanging out with a friend who happened to be a guy, and one of their other friends took a picture and like sent it to their boyfriend, and their boyfriend was like, oh, and like got all angry even though like nothing was happening, just the fact that they were in the same room.
Yeah, so there's actually, so Dave, you were talking about this, I'm going to skip ahead one slide, but I thought that mate retention wasn't necessarily relevant, but Dave, you were talking about, why don't you describe what you told me the other day?
Oh, well, so there's a professor at ASU who studies sort of adolescent relationships, and actually what she finds is she has found that social media is is a big one, right? Like people will be like hanging out and they'll see a picture of somebody hanging out with somebody, or they'll see somebody like a picture like on Instagram of like one of their friends or some like bikini model or something, and they'll be like, why did you like this picture? And so that's like a big thing that's apparently causing some troubles.
If you even like view someone else's profile, they can see that. Not anybody, but the person's profile who you're seeing, they can like see who saw their stuff.
And it can cause jealousy, right? It can cause people to be like,
Yeah.
what's going on? So, well, all right, you can keep going then.
Okay, so one of the things in the book we talk about is when people are in long-term relationships, one bad piece of advice is they used to say in my generation, oh, you've got to do what's right for yourself in relationships. And it turns out that the evidence seems to suggest that's not good advice, that really you'll have a much happier relationships if you ask, what can I do for my partner? Because we all have tendencies, we have cognitive biases that lead us to believe that I'm always doing more of the housework than you are, because I only see myself doing the housework. I don't necessarily see you doing it. And so it's a good idea to, to bias in favor of your partner. Sometimes partners can be exploitive and abusive, but then, you'll realize that after a while. But even if you break up with somebody, it's nice to do it in a nice way, because it just makes everybody's life easier. And it leads to, kind of just a better social world that you're living in. Now we're going to move.
So in terms of also, let me just ask real quick, in health class, do they ever talk about like issues of jealousy online or things like that, or how to, or is this?
I'm pretty sure when I took health over the summer last year, they like briefly did cyberbullying.
Okay, so, but like, so here's one of the big challenges I think that people are finding is, do you guys feel like there's actual like rules in place for like what's appropriate in terms of social media, or is everybody who's like in a relationship sort of figuring it out as they go?
There's like few things that every person like don't do that, but not like rules. No.
I don't think there's like, is this like if you're in a relationship with someone, like what are the rules?
Yeah. Well,
okay. I think it would probably depend on like the relationship. Like
most girls,
you could tell if like someone doesn't trust the person they're in a relationship with based on their like rules or whatever. If you're like, don't look at their stuff, don't like their stuff, even if you know that there's no like meaning behind it other than they're just like friends or whatever.
Yeah. Most couples I think are like, don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I also, so one of the things is I think a lot of times parents, right, you guys are the first sort of generation to grow up with this technology. And so sometimes parents are like, I don't even know, right? And health teachers and teachers might be like, wait, what? You guys are arguing over Instagram? And so, so it also might be worth, one other bit of advice I would say, because I was like, oh, talk to your parents. If you're like, I'm not gonna talk to my parents about this or that, picking like a responsible, like sibling, or, you know what I mean? Like somebody who's like a little bit older and maybe has had a successful relationship, but isn't your parent. I don't know if you guys have somebody like that. Greta, do you have like
one of those?
you have Haley, right? How old is Haley? Greta, like
me. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, there's a sibling named Haley.
Your cousin
is 15.
15. So it's not like she's like in college and she's really.
She's like a year older than me. She's not so much like. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like that's part of the problem. No one really gets it right now, besides the people doing it, like our parents, like my mom's like, what the heck is a chat snap? And it's like, why are you taking pictures? I'm like, I'm not taking pictures, I'm just sending Greta a photo. I'm like, why are you sending? I'm like, it's just.
Are you saying like, that we're clueless?
Gets it. If they do get it, they don't have any experience.
So a couple of things like from just general relationship advice that I've heard that you guys might want to keep in mind is like, you should always feel comfortable talking to your friends about a relationship. And if there's ever anything that happens in a relationship and then your partner's like, don't tell anybody about this, generally that's not a good sign. And you should still like run things by your parents or your friends even, you know, and just to be like, is this normal? So that's always kind of good. And if your friends are like, I don't know, then maybe consider like talking to, I don't know. Do you guys have any like teachers who are like
Younger
or just sort of seem hip, especially if they're like
Like, I don't know if I'd actually like
comfortable talking to them about that.
what about like
awkward.
the what? You'd feel awkward?
I feel like it would be awkward if I like went up to my teachers and like, hey,
Is this a normal thing
so-
in a relationship? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's another like boundary not to cross. Go up talking to your teachers about your boyfriend or whatever.
I mean, some people do, but like,
I feel like I'm not there.
I also think moms are a good choice, you know. If in doubt, just talk to your mom. I think especially for both of you guys, I think your moms know. Or grandma. Haha's hip. So
All right, speaking of grandmas, let's move on to the final level, which is parenting. So just a sort of theoretical background, all mammals invest in, at least the females invest in the offspring. Humans are different in that the fathers also are involved, unlike most other mammals. And we basically are here because our ancestors took care of those very helpless. Human babies are very helpless. They have big heads, they can't move around. And so our ancestors were good at, taking care of their children. But parenting is kind of hard. So we're busy. We got lots of stuff that we're doing. Dave has to be checking his email, and and I'm working on my PowerPoints, and I got things to do. And so I remember I got Liam an iPad early on, and I thought, oh, this is great because he really liked it, and it's a way that's sort of a free babysitting service. But now there's the problem of if I try to get him off it, I mean, part of the reason why he's not sitting here is because now he's gaming, and when I try to get him off it, it's like taking away drugs from a drug addict. Okay, no, and
but there's a flip side to that, right? Which about parent email use, right? That you love email. We have a shirt that says it.
Exactly right.
And,
yeah. So we're not, well, I'll talk
I
about
love
that
arguing with people on TikTok. So
yeah, I'm going to talk about that in just a second too, but that's an interesting point because so here's something. If you spend more than 37 minutes of quality time with your parents in a given day, you're in a family that's above average in connectedness. The average family spends 37 minutes of quality time a day, and all the rest of the time they're doing other things. They're not relating to one another. And even now, when we try to have that quality time, people have their, they've got their, we're talking, and one of the members of the conversation is looking over here down at their cell phone. And this was a survey that asked people, parents, is it ever the case that you are trying to have a conversation with your kid and they're distracted by their phone? Okay, and I know that never happens with you, Greta, but some parents said never, and some parents said, rarely. But a lot of parents said often, and the biggest number of parents said, yes, it's sometimes a problem. I try to talk to my kid. The kid is looking at their cell phone. And in terms of what you just said, Dave, they also asked the teenagers, what about their parents? And what they found is that, in fact, the most common response was the kid said, yes, they sometimes are trying to talk to their parent, and their parent is distracted by their cell phone. And so, again, parents are not necessarily innocent in this regard. What I suggest here is some solutions to this is to, just set limits on the amount of time that kids use and that you use yourself as a parent, because we don't want to model electronic addiction to our kids. And I'm afraid that we, like the shirt that I have that says I heart email, and Dave looking at his cell phone during this, we're not exactly immune from these problems. And in fact, we may make it worse.
Are there other solutions? Are there other things that you guys are like, you know what?
Just listening.
How to improve relations with your
just listening to the kids.
Well, because like my mom, I'll come in, I'll try to talk to her, and then she'll be like, "Okay, can I watch my show now?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, I'm done." And then I just walk away. And I feel like just like stopping and not just wanting to get back to the electronic.
Sorry.
It's not just like you, because in that mindset, you're just like waiting to get back for it to be done, when you could just be like in it and then be like, oh my God, now I can, not get me out of here so I can go do this,
Yeah. So maybe based upon what you're saying, Sophia, we parents ought to have a rule that says that as soon as our kids come and talk to us, we just put aside our electronic devices, that our kids matter more to us than whatever wonderful email message we're getting or whatever television show we're watching or whatever.
There's also even like mindfulness stuff about how you can, as a parent, you can say, sure, hold on, I've got to finish, after we're done talking, I've got to finish this email, but let me put it aside. And you can actually sort of
like drop everything, just like wait, just be like, oh, can I just have like 30 seconds? Okay. Rather than like, oh yeah, and like keep trying, like it just.
That's true. Trying to avoiding the multitasking, which is really tempting, right? But just saying,
I feel like, well, sometimes Dad, I'll be like talking, and I feel like this also happens with other people, but like, I'll be like, can I tell you something? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'll like tell this whole like story, and then I'm like, wait, what? Do you know what I mean? I was like, wait, what are we doing? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, no, it is.
So, well, sometimes that happens when I'm on my screen. Sometimes that also, I think, just happens when I'm spaced out, right?
Yeah, like I don't think it's like that big of a problem, but I feel like it's something that like, I don't know.
No, I know what you mean. That it is. There's a thing of, yeah. Well, it especially happens when I'm on my screen.
But I feel like that also is sometimes how it is with like me and Finn. So I don't know.
Right. I mean, yeah. Well, there's also times when I'm driving and I'm just like
not able to multitask.
Yeah. So, but I think, but picking those times where it's like saying, all right, you have my full attention. I think that's good. So.
Yeah. I think also having a rule that says, look, when some other human being is trying to talk to me, it's almost never more important that I be on my electronic device or be watching my television show or whatever. Like, just we should have a rule. Like I have a rule at home: don't yell. No matter how annoying Liam gets, I try not to yell, and I don't always succeed. But just having that rule in the back of my head, and I think having a rule that says when a human being is talking to me, my electronic device should just go aside, and whatever I'm doing should be put aside. It would be a good.
Right. Yeah,
rule.
I think that is a good thing, and especially like when people get home, wait. So.
Oh yes, instead of going straight to your device, yeah.
Or if you're on a device and somebody else comes home, just if it's a thing that you can pause, I think that's a good rule for everybody. So, but I do think sometimes you have to almost say to yourself as a parent or a kid, okay, I'm going to go back and finish this email after I get the kids a snack or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you have to actively say that. So, because otherwise you're thinking in your mind about both things. So
it's easy to see it in other people. So like, I know, there's all this stuff about texting while you're driving. And I always think, what lunatic would text while they're driving? I have actually found myself sometimes texting. The light changes and I'm texting and I like finish the message, okay? Or I try to finish, or I try to speak it into my phone and my phone really isn't responding and I'm pressing buttons. And it's like, it's easy to get trapped. These things are so addictive, and they're everywhere, but it's good to just have a rule. I just don't, in the same way that I have a rule, don't yell. Don't let these devices run your life. I'm going to actually close on one note, which is a more positive one. So there's different biologists talk about different kinds. I don't know if did I show the slide before?
Nope.
No. So biologists talk about different kinds of parasitism. You know, there's extreme parasitism, which is like the cuckoo who lays its eggs in the nest of a warbler, and the warbler raises an offspring that's not even its own. It basically, the cuckoo totally parasitizes the reproductive potential of the warbler. Then there's microparasitism, like the mosquito just eats a little bit of the host, not too much. Then there's something called commensalism, where the parasite just rides along, like, you know, the pilotfish and remoras swim along with sharks, and they really don't cost the shark very much, but they eat some of the scraps when the shark finds some prey. And then finally, there's something called symbiotic mutualism, where both the parasite and the host are getting something. So a clownfish, you know, it gets benefits from the sea anemone, but it also, apparently they do things for one another. I'm not sure exactly what they do for one another, but apparently there are some benefits. I think that clownfish eat some of the fungus off the sea anemone, and the sea anemone protects the clownfish. So they're both using each other and getting rewards. And in fact, electronic technology, same sort of thing. I mean, you know, when I asked ASU students.
Actually, before you ask the other students, let me just ask these guys, are there ways you think technology can help with these sorts of things?
Well,
It's a lot easier to get things more like widely known. Like before, if you want to start something, you have to like how we're doing with this book. We have to go like door to door, like read my book, or like put it in a library. Where as here you can just post it on the internet, and anyone who comes
and, like,
along it can
anyone
see
who
it.
sees it can see it.
It's true. So
Communicate more widely.
It's also easier to get information.
Yeah, like if you have a question or something,
You don't
like,
have to find someone who knows what
you
you're
can
talking
just
about.
in the moment, like, yeah.
I think it also makes it more of a back and forth. That's one of the things I've liked about sort of doing the Zoom talk this way, is we actually get to talk to teenagers rather than just taking our best guess as to what the heck is going on. So,
Yeah.
So are there other ways going forward, like in terms of thinking about, all right, how could we as a society use technology to sort of make people feel less lonely and make people, you know, have less arguments with
Or any of the things we talked about, you know, help people get ahead, help people keep their friends, find mates, help their families.
I'm not sure, because I feel like some social media apps, I don't know,
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but they were like made to like connect people and stuff like that. And I think sometimes they do, but then other times they like bring people apart or like make people feel left out. So I'm not really sure.
I don't really think there's a way to help that loneliness, because I think people feel lonely because of like, instead of being out with people, you're on your phone watching people, but you don't know them, you know? It's just like, that's a person. It just keeps you entertained to distract yourself from whatever.
So if somebody came to you guys and said, we're going to give you guys $50 million to make the perfect social media app, what sort of app would you guys make?
Oh, perfect.
I don't know. I kind of TikTok. Sorry, I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't make you sad.
TikTok, is that what you said?
Yeah, because like apps like Instagram or Snapchat, like I know when I open my phone and I have no notifications from Snapchat, I'm like, no one likes me. Or like when I'm on Instagram and I'm seeing all these people have fun, I'm like, that's depressing because I'm not having fun. But then like on TikTok, things are just funny and you just see people having fun and a great time. So maybe not something where they're like, this is me in my life, or let me talk to you. It's just like, this is funny.
Yeah.
All right, I think that makes sense. Also, the thing about the no notifications, I wonder if almost an app where it's like
you have to just check it. There's not notifications as an option.
Yeah, and maybe even exactly. So,
here's some of the things you already touched on. Some of these, what ASU students said were most helpful. You can use iPhones and things like that to get help when in an emergency, which is electronic technology doing a really good thing for us. You can use them to actually communicate with friends who are far away, maintain relationships with friends who are far away. You can check in with your family, and those are all things that I think we would regard as good. So anyway, let's kind of close on that note. And unless anybody wants to say anything else.
Do you have any final questions or any thoughts after you've seen this little talk?
I don't think so, but
Was there anything that seemed useful where you're like, oh, that might be useful?
To get off your phones a little more. Don't get so distracted and stay so much in the world of your phone.
But you guys probably already knew that, right? Like you probably heard somebody say. So is there anything takeaway in terms of like, all right, so let's say you wanted to get off your phones a little more, like, you know what I could do? I could do this.
Yeah, because most of the time people are just like, it's not good, but then they'd never give you.
but then they're like, like when people are, I don't know.
They don't give you
Never
away.
mind.
They don't give you. They just tell you the problem and they don't give you any solutions. And you guys gave us some solutions.
Yeah, like you want, like more of a reward, like
Yeah.
instead of just like a thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Also remember, you can pick other healthier rewards, right? Like so. The what? Like what?
Like wait.
Oh, I said like Oreos.
It's hidden, the
Like
Oreos that are hidden around the house.
No, like berries. It should be.
Oh, we should hide. Yes, we should hide more berries.
Berries.
We should hide them in the car. That's really, I think we're already halfway there.
Berries.
Just
right.
old
It's
fruits.
120 degrees out this summer.
Oh my god, you guys can put grapes in there and then they'll turn. Then you guys can go in there and find them and they'll be raisins.
That's true.
I hate raisins.
Oh.
Then do
But you haven't.
You get craisins.
Crazy.
Ooh, crazy. So, and then we could have what we need? We need an app where we hide stuff around the house, and then when you find that thing, then you can check Facebook or whatever.
That's
right?
confusing.
I don't know how it works. We got to work out the details. So.
All right. So let me just say we're at 77 minutes, which is quite a long time. So thank you guys for joining us. And we're going to close. We're going to put this up. And here's a final plug for our book, which is going to be available any day now. In fact, it could be pre-ordered today, but it's going to be available this week on Kindle. And then in June, I believe it's going to be available in paperback version. And it does, I think, have a lot of good advice in it for dealing with a lot of these kinds of problems. So
yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Thanks.
Parents and everyone out there should go buy a copy.
Yes, go buy a copy. Yes.
All right.
So that way, Greta has money when she goes to college to buy more Oreos.
That's right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Greta and Sophia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
And
We'll see you later.
all
Bye.
right. See you guys. Oh, also, before you stop recording, if anybody's watching and has questions, put them in the YouTube comments and we will answer them. So, and if anybody wants to subscribe to our YouTube channel, they should do that. What else do people say at the end of YouTube videos, girls? What are we supposed to
Hit
say?
that like button.
Hit the like
Hit that
button, subscribe, follow, and comment.
Go like our TikToks.
Follow us
Yeah,
at
if we have
Rap of the
TikToks.
Rappers.
Oh, that's Greta and Sophia's rap TikTok channel. So
I don't know what else people say.
I think that's perfect. So
Have a
cool.
good day.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All
Adios.
right. Okay. So now.